Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Whiskey Wonders. And today we really have actually a whole month where we are going to be out of the state. Now, it's not that far though. It's in the beautiful state of Arizona, which is pretty much our next door neighbor here in California. And in fact, we are going to have some really crazy, amazing footage from our wanders in Arizona, which tends to be way, way more stacked than California with bourbon. In this specific video, though, we are going to be kicking it off with our first visit to Total Wine, where we will see some allocated bourbons from Weller's, as well as a boutique rye, the Cream of Kentucky, and a Campbeltown Scotch Hazelburn 10, and really a whole bunch more. But before we get to this video, if you do like these videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you. And we have tons and tons of great stuff cooking up for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it does actually really help the channel to grow. We're super thankful for that. But also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out on Sundays, like this one, or sometimes in between. All right, now, let's get down to the video. All right, so while the Wander Vision is getting fired up and I'm getting warmed up, I think today I'm going to try and be enjoying, during this video, I think I'm going to go with something a little interesting here. Let's see what we got. But let's do a little bit of this little book. Not too much because I've been saving it to compare to some of the other ones. But sometimes you want something just a little unique. So let's get a little juice for ourselves. And to whiskey. Because really, honestly, you can never drink too much of it. You can only just drink it too fast. Cheers. Oh man, that's good. All right, so first up today is going to be a whiskey that is always a fan favorite from Weller, which is the Weller Special Reserve. And now the Special Reserve is kind of really the starting point for anyone who is beginning their whiskey journey and crawling out of the caves of Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and those kinds of ones. I'm not saying they're bad, but just like the base level whiskeys, getting up to that next level is oftentimes the first next step. It is also the least expensive and the most available of the wheated Weller whiskeys. Boy, say that 5 times fast. Its biggest claim to fame, being from the Buffalo Trace stable, is that it shares the same mash bill, essentially the DNA, as Old Rip Van Winkle 10, Pappy 15, 20, 23, and William LaRue Weller. So there's a lot to be said for its lineage, and drinking it, you do get flashes of family resemblance, but it's kind of where it all ends. Now, one of the great things about being in Arizona is that there are not so many bourbon lovers in such a dense, confined space that things like this sells out instantaneously. Although I would argue their fervor is well above what we see in California. Shout out to the Bourbon Society of Arizona. But the other great thing about it is the price. Here you can see the price on the Weller Special Reserve is at $19.99, which is quite good. We got one of these last year's here at a local grocery store, and I think we paid $24.99 for it. And I've seen it at liquor stores just kind of randomly when we're perusing about at $59.99. So essentially $60, or what we call highway robbery. But I don't even think anyone blinks at that. It's not a surprise that some people are gouging on whiskey, right? This means that by buying it in Arizona, if we had bought it in Arizona, we would have saved $5 over the California price. Or if you put that percentage-wise, 25.01%, which $5, you know, that's money for sure, but 25%, that's kind of a big difference. The ABV on this Weller Special Reserve is at 45%. That's the ABV, so that puts it at 90 proof. And like I said, it's definitely a step up from many of the other kind of entry-level whiskeys who oftentimes are as low as 40%. Anyways, and the tasting notes on it are what you would expect. And I have tasted a fair share of it. This is the second bottle that we got for it. But the tasting notes on it are what you would expect in the sense that it is sweet. It has a strong cinnamon forward as well as an ABV that is a little bit more outsized than you would think than a 45% would have. There's leather, there's a bit of char, but you know, it is honestly kind of watery, right? And that's just kind of going to go with the territory with something at this weight level. So, yeah, it's still good though, and I like it. The only downside to it is that you really don't get a lot of kind of the weediness that you would expect. Now, that being said, it does get a pretty good score out of 100. It gets 84 points, which again, quite good. Not eel rare good, considering I would put those two in the same category, but still pretty good. So the other thing is that it's always very cool to actually be able to see these in the wild before they sell out like that. But since we already had a couple of them, we have that one, we have this one back here. We decided not to pick it up, but again, $19.99, Weller Special Reserve. It's gonna be a buy all day, every day if you don't have one. So conclusion, buy. All right. So next up is a whiskey that the wife saw right off the bat, and especially if you've seen the videos before. I have mentioned that her whiskey proclivities tend to swing to the Scotch side, which thus brings us this Hazelburn 10. Now, it is actually pretty interesting to see. One thing is that having traveled back and forth between Europe and the US, that the whiskeys that are hard to find in the US, like some of the bourbons, those tend to be a little easier to find in Europe. Now, inversely, the same goes with some of the Scotches. So Scotch like Hazelburn, which are relatively small producers, are pretty hard to find in Europe, but here in the US side, we find them pretty often. So I don't know, I always thought that was pretty interesting. This Hazelburn 10 specifically is a cousin to one of the most popular Campbeltown scotches out there. Maybe you've heard of it, the Springbank. And actually, it is distilled in the Springbank distillery. Obviously, it is 10 years, and it is triple distilled, and it is unpeated. Now, the unpeatedness makes it unique in the family of whiskeys that it comes from, that are Springbank, because, well, it kind of fills a role that is within the Springbank family. Like, for example, the Springbank itself is kind of light to mediumly peated. The long grown is the medium to heavy peated varieties, and Hazelburn, well, it tends to be unpeated. This Hazelburn 10 is also aged in 100% ex-bourbon barrels. Now, the price that we see it here at the Total Wine in Arizona is at $99.99, which seems about the right price that we can see here also in the Total Wine in California. So they're basically exactly the same. I have not seen it either at Costco or Bevmo, so maybe it is, but I've never seen it at Costco or Bevmo. And, it's sort of going to be a wash whether you buy it in Arizona or California because it's the same price. Now, the ABV on the Hazelburn 10 is going to be at 46%, which you can see right there. Or, 92 proof? Yeah. And the general tasting notes on it that I could find, because I have not yet tried it, although I look forward to opening this one up, is that it is a mixture of spices like ginger, mineral water, allspice, and wood spice, or woodiness, I guess, mixed in with like tree fruits and cooked apples and late harvest pears. That sounds quite good. As I had mentioned, Hazelburn, though, is a very small, limited production. So it makes it pretty difficult to find any reviews on because there's a small number of people who get it, and even smaller number of people who want to type it up and put it on the internet. But out of the scores I could find, those folks really liked it and gave it 87 points out of 100 on average. So I would count that as pretty good. Obviously, this one was a buy for us because it's here and we have it. And I have admitted that having started kind of down this path with Springbank and Hazelburn and Long Grown and some of the other Campbelltowns, I think that I really started to like these, and really all of them, when I see them on the shelf, are starting to attract my attention, and we're starting to pick up more and more of them. So it is good that to have a wife who has good taste in whiskeys, who tempts me to them, and also has great taste in men, if I may say myself. So that is the Hazelburn 10. All right, for this last whiskey in the wander from Total Wine Arizona is another whiskey that really got a fair share and gets a fair share of hype from J.W. Rutledge, not the author, out of Crestwood, Kentucky. It's going to be this Cream of Kentucky Bottle and Bond Straight Kentucky Rye. Yeah. Now, Cream of Kentucky is another one of those relatively small distribution size whiskeys that has a pretty strong following. It's made from 100% rhyming rye, obviously, onomatopoeic, right? That is estate grown. So, I'm not exactly sure what estate grown means, but it sounds like someone grows it in their backyard, basically. But they only make about 70 barrels of it a year, or that comes out to about 9,000 bottles. Cream of Kentucky is one of those whiskey brands that basically went extinct back in the dark times of whiskey, but it has been revived just recently by the former master distiller of Four Roses, Jim Rutledge, assuming that's the J.W. Rutledge, who decided to move out of mass marketing whiskey like Four Roses and try his hand at these kind of artisanal, boutique, farm-to-fork styles of whiskey. Now, this version of it actually does not have an age statement, but we can assume that it's probably been aged at least 4 years. And it was made under the guidelines of being bottled in bond. Now, the price we got here at the Total Wine in Arizona is at $74.99, which is on par for what you can get it for, because we also saw it in Costco in Las Vegas, a couple hundred miles away, maybe more than that, and for the same price. And then at Bevmo, now Bevmo, I found an expired one that had it at $159.99, so I don't think that there was this specific bottle, or maybe it's an old price, or man, they're really gouging. I'm not sure which one it is, so I don't know if we should count that one or not. But $74.99 seems like a pretty good price if you buy it either at Costco or Total Wine, but you just can't get it here in California. I don't think I've ever seen it at Costco in California. ABV on the Cream of Kentucky, as you would imagine, being bottled in bond, is at 50% ABV or 100 proof. You can see that there. And I think that really, in my humble opinion, that's where most bourbons should be at. There are exceptions for some of the Japanese whiskeys and sure some scotches, but for bourbons, 100 seems like a pretty good proof. Now, the tasting notes on it is where things kind of sort of get interesting, because it mentioned things like a very heavy earthen flavors with oak as well as hard nuts, and I never thought about nuts being hard or soft nuts tasting any differently. It also mentions there is a fair amount of complexity and a finish that is described as very heavy oatmeal raisin cookies. Again, that sounds delicious, especially after dinner or something like that. One oddity about it, though, is that the scores I could find were kind of all over the place. It seems that Cream of Kentucky may be one of those take it or kind of leave it styles of whiskey. But from what I could average together, it came out to 86 points out of 100, which honestly is a little underwhelming for whiskey that has such a hype, that has been risen from the dead and revived by a master distiller from a brand that I really do like. I do enjoy Four Roses. I just would have thought that would have a little bit more. But also, you know, what that comes down to is it means I'm going to have to try it. I'm going to have to try it and see if I land in the camp of love it or land in the camp of hate it. Either way, obviously, the Cream of Kentucky at $74.99, Total Wine, Arizona, for us, was a buy. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wanders at Total Wine in Arizona, the first of the next couple of videos that are all going to be Arizona-based. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do, if you like it, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff we got cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel to grow. Again, thank you. But also, you get notifications when our newest videos come out, and it's also good for your whiskey mojo. So with that, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it, because honestly, if you don't, somebody else surely will. In this case, might even be me. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.